Okay, hello everyone. So today we're going to be talking about feudal Japan. You will see that there are some similarities and differences with feudal Europe, but obviously this is Japan, so let's dive into it. So, feudalism. It's a system of protection where large landholders, lords, offer protection to people in return for their service to their land owner. So, just as we saw in the medieval ages, this is all about land. One person is above them, they own the land, the person below them works the land, and that's how they pay each other. Now we have seen this kind of triangle quite a bit, okay, throughout all of our classes. Now, what is something to notice here is in Japan, actually, the lowest class is the merchants. So people that are trying to sell things, um, business people, at this time, they were the lowest class. Craftspeople, blacksmiths, people that make pottery, they are the second lowest. Now this is a little different from a lot of the things that we have seen, just with peasants being the one at the lowest. Now you'll see that farmers and fishermen, these peasants, they make up 90% of the population. So if you were to line up 10 people, 9 of them would be a farmer or fisherman, but they are the third from the bottom. So they are higher than artisans and merchants, which is actually kind of incredible when you think about it, because every other society we've looked at isn't like that. Then you have the Rowan. These are paid soldiers. So these guys are just guys with swords and armor, and they're the ones that go to war. Now, if you look to the right here, it's going to say warrior class. One, two, three, four. All of these people here were based off warriors. Okay. Um, and so the Roran, they were the lowest soldiers. Then you have the samurai. Everybody knows the samurai. We've heard stuff about the samurai, and we really have kind of a almost mythological connection with samurai, with the deeds that they did. Now, if you were to think about this as the medieval, samurai are pretty similar to where the knights are. They are the warriors. They would be hired. Sometimes they'd be kind of roaming samurai that would just keep the peace wherever they would go. And that would be kind of what they would do. And we're also going to look at more of what the samurai do and how you would have to train to become a samurai later this week. Then you have the daimyos. They're the nobles, they're the lords, they're the ones that own the land. They're the ones that the samurai, the roaring, the peasants, the artisan, and merchants answer to. They also are the ones that they kind of do clans, so they are the leader of their clan, um, and they are the ones that would say who should go to war, who shouldn't. Now, one of these daimyos has accrued enough power to rule as the shogun. The shogun is actually the highest person on this list. So I know it says the emperor is above him, okay? But if you look over here, it says emperor is a figurehead. The shogun here actually makes every decision on politics. He is the one running the show. He is in charge, okay? Now there is an emperor, but this emperor doesn't really do a lot. That emperor is just there for ceremonies. That emperor is there to look good. That emperor doesn't make any decisions. They get to live in the big fancy castles. They get to do all this kind of stuff. But it is the shogun that is making all the decisions and running the country of Japan in this ancient time. So there are many competing clans in the Japanese provinces. Japan was dangerous and not unified. So all of these different daimyos are fighting for different powers, and they want to rule the land and have more land to rule. But they're not unified at this point. So nobles fought each other over land. Rebels fought against imperial officials. Lawlessness spread and people rebelled. Land was destroyed, so farming became Impossible. Peasants started thieving. So there was a point when there was so much fighting in Japan that it became a real problem because they were destroying all the farmland. They were destroying all this land where people were trying to grow the food. So if you can't eat, what do you have to do? You have to start stealing to survive, and that's what the peasants did, and that started becoming a problem. And this is what's the craziest part. So the wealthy culture uh, and the court nobles of the high-end period ignored all this. They didn't care. They just pretended like it didn't even happen. Um, and so if the people in charge don't stop it, um, then it's just going to continue, and it's almost going to be encouraging to doing that, kind of turning a blind eye, and it got worse. So in order to stop these rebellions, Japan's large landowners, the daimyo, decided they needed to step in and protect their land. So when you see that the emperor did nothing, right? The emperor did nothing. They didn't care about this, and the people of Japan, the daimyos, they are the ones that stepped in. So this is why this is where the tilt of the power really went to the daimyo, because they're the ones that kind of stop the problem. They are the ones that decided to say, hey, this is something big and we need to fix it. So they hired the samurai. These are the trained professional warriors to defend their property. Okay, so these are the guys that they would hire. And if you look over here at this kind of picture, lots of different things of the samurai here. Okay, so in 1192, the emperor gave the title of Great General or Shogun to the leader of the most powerful clan. A shogun is a powerful military leader. So remember, they're the ones that fixed it. They are the ones that went out and stopped the thieving and stopped the looting. They are the ones that basically solved the problems here. So the emperor gives him this title, and this title meant a lot more to a lot of people because they were the ones doing everything. The emperor tried to maintain power, but the real power was in the hands of the shogun, the top military leader. So once he did that, once he gave that title, and once he gave that power to them, there was no going back. He literally just became a person that was there to cut ribbons, that would look good, and be there for holidays and different ceremonies. The emperor was a mere figurehead. Now, we haven't really looked at any civilizations that have had a figurehead as a leader, but a figurehead is a person who appears to be in power, but the real power rests with someone else. So if you were to look at that triangle, you'd say, yeah, the emperor is the one in charge. He's on top. No, um, he's just the figurehead. It looks like he's in power. People thank him. People um, say all these good things about him, but he doesn't do anything. And honestly, if you want to kind of think about something, maybe Disney to help you out, if you're trying to think here, if you think about Aladdin, the Sultan is the figurehead, right? It looks like he's in charge, but really it's Jafar making all the kind of decisions. So in the late 1200s, the Mongols under Kublai Khan attacked and further weakening Japan. So they actually came over on the boats, and Japan didn't see a lot of this because they are an island and they did not deal with a lot of attacks from outside forces. So when this happened, it was actually pretty impressive and pretty surprising to the people of Japan. Now, a system of protection was created to ensure safety for the people in the provinces, and a military hierarchy was created. So this is where that feudalism comes in, which is basically the cause and effect of why that happens in Japan. This thing right here too, it's actually really cool. It's one of the biggest shrines in Japan. And if you see this water, when the water is high tide, it comes up like this. And when it's low tide, you can actually walk out to this shrine and see it. So the shogun was the top military, and this is just kind of a wrap up here. The shogun was the top military official, titled the Great General, allowed samurai to work for the daimyo. Samurai mounted armored warriors that protected land for the daimyo. They would receive small parcels of land for payment, and the peasants and clan members, they lived and worked on the daimyo's land. So all of these guys had different jobs. All of these guys had different kind of responsibilities. And this is the way that it worked for the feudal system in Japan. Okay, we're going to hold off on this clip, but and if you want, this is all with the kind of learning that we're going to do today. But for me, I actually took a trip to Japan a few years ago, so I wanted to kind of show you a little video or a little picture slideshow with some of the things that we looked at and we saw as we went through. So there's not going to be really more learning. If you want to just stick around, well, there is going to be learning, but it's not going to be anything about ancient Japan. But this is, if you want to stick around and see some of the cool stuff, feel free. So for the Bennett Japan trip, guys, first you got to start off with anime over there is really big. So one of the big things that we saw was Pokemon almost everywhere. Pokemon and food, as you see here, as Pokemon spaghetti, Pokemon burgers. This was the Pokemon store. So they actually had this store here, all dedicated to just Pokemon stuff. So we went to see that, and that was pretty cool. More anime. They had Attack on Titan stuff. They around a lot of their buildings. This is when I think the second season was coming out. This building here is very cool. So you can see that there's a arcade down here. You would walk down the street and you would see an arcade about every 100 feet. So this is a Sega arcade. You go in there and you'd be able to play video games, claw machines, all this stuff. And then you would go upstairs, and on this floor there would be a whole new set of games. And then you go up this, and there'd be a whole new set of games. And then on like usually the fourth floor, there was a floor where they would gamble. And they would actually gamble playing video games, which was very cool. And these people were very, very good. And then on the top floor, they would also have like a virtual reality thing where you could link in and put a virtual reality device on there and run around and do that kind of stuff. Now, a lot of these different things, there would be a lot of these buildings, and they could also be dedicated to a lot of things. This one was just video games, but there was also ones that were, one floor would be bowling, one floor would be karaoke, one floor would definitely be video games. They love their video games there. And, you know, another floor would just be something else. Now, this was kind of cool. So you would see these shrines that would be thousands of years old. This shrine here is one of the oldest ones from the Shinto. So the Shinto is this religion that the Japanese follow, that is all about kind of nature and being in there. And this arch you're going to see a lot. You'll see that a lot of these kind of temples here. So if you watch Avatar, the Fire Nation is based off Japan, and you see this very clearly in their shrines. But the coolest part is this shrine right here. You turn the corner, and you can even see here in the corner there's a skyscraper. They are all interlaid within this very, very modern city. And that city was Tokyo. Now we're here at Kyoto. So the first thing I wanted to say is, oh my gosh, look at this burger. I had this burger and it almost stopped my heart. It was called the Giga Mac. So first of all, McDonald's is all over the world. They're taking over. But it was like a Big Mac, except way bigger. 4 patties, bigger thing. It nearly stopped my heart. So then they had this one. It was called the Inari Shrine. They had a lot of shrines there. And this one here, had over 10,000 of these kind of gates, and you'd walk through, and even back here you can see that it blocks out the sun. You walk up this kind of mountain, and we walked up to the top, and you got to see, and you walk through these gates all the time. And this is actually, it's called the Fox Shrine. So there's a lot of foxes here, and there's a lot of fox statues. Also here they had this bamboo forest. one of the most beautiful bamboo forests that they have in the world. If you watch CNN 10, this has been featured on CNN as one of the places that you must visit. And once again, here's another really big shrine. If you watched CNN 10 just a couple weeks ago, they showed this. On the other side here, there is a huge market, a very big market that stretches down for about half a mile where they're selling a bunch of different things. This here over here is Skytree. It's a very large radio tower, but it also has a mall at the bottom. And it's very cool because this is where that Pokemon store is, and it's a huge landmark. Right here is the Kyoto food market. Every day, these guys would come in and set up these different foods and sell all this stuff. I had some of the best steak I've had here. I've had octopus here. Very good. So then I wanted to show you, as you were walking down the streets, you would look down these different alleys, and at night they would all light up, and people would be out and about and going to all these different places. They also had, just kind of regular food that we would kind of consider for lunch. Sandwiches were a big thing. It was kind of a cultural diffusion here, where they kind of American come in that way. This handsome fellow here, that is Mr. Bennett, and this is me by one of those really big shrines. Back here is another big shrine, and that leads into the Inari Shrine kind of place. So here's some of more Japanese food. You got to have the sushi roll or the rice roll. Okay, this is really good. This was kind of like a sandwich. It was rice wrapped in seaweed with a little tuna and lettuce in there. This is the ramen bowl. Okay, this is some of the best ramen I've ever had. Delicious. And then this is Kobe beef. Really, really good. Probably the best steak I've ever had in my life. And what they do is they give it to you raw and you cook it on this little barbecue that sits in front of you at your table. This is that shrine I was talking about in the presentation. This is when it's low tide and people actually walk up to it. And just to see how big this is, all of these people, like this guy right here next to the mouse, that's a full-grown man. And he doesn't even come up to where the water would be. The water would usually line up to about here. So this is a huge shrine. This is the tallest one. It's amazing. And what we had to do is we had to go onto this island. And on this island, there are so many visitors and so many people there. And Japan has these kind of islands with all these animals. Some of them have a bunny island, some of them have cat island. This was like a deer island where the deer would actually come up to you. You could pet them, you could feed them. I would just say if you did it, make sure you wash your hands after. Here's the sushi. Oh man, the sushi was so good. It actually came we sat at a table and you would take the plates off this tray that would come flying by you. Now, in the presentation, you saw this castle, okay? And this castle right here was very impressive. It was the Osaka Castle, and this is where the emperor lived for many, many, many years. Now the emperor of Japan lives in Tokyo. Osaka was the capital, but now Tokyo is. So this naturally has become a museum where you can visit. So we decided to go in here and we climbed up the stairs and we got to see all these really cool things. And we went up here into this viewing area. Now the viewing area is a picture from over here. So there's a moat around the Osaka Castle, and you look out and there's a big park, which is kind of cool because would be where all the nobles lived. But then you look at the city, and this is one of the things I'm telling you about. You see a city, all new skyscrapers here, but also, boom, you have the ancient kind of architecture. And then here's some American influences. Okay. Oh, the ice cream there was really good. They had Universal Studios of Japan. If you like the Minions, more people dress up as Minions than anything I've ever seen. They also had a Harry Potter world there. Everyone was speaking Harry Potter spells, but they were all in Japanese, so it was kind of funny to see. And then one of the buildings here. Now people would say these are too positive American influences. Well, this building here, if you know anything about World War II, America dropped 2 nuclear bombs, atomic bombs, on Japan. Okay, this one here was in Nagasaki, and it was one of the few buildings to actually survive. Most of the city was leveled, and thousands of people died in a second. So interesting to see. So just a little bit more, some food here. You have this other ramen bowl that was, I don't know, I remember that one being really delicious. They had these things called fluffy pancakes, where these pancakes were just, they weren't as kind of wide as what we have, but look at that, just, oh. And then you had a bunch of jerky over there. And this one I thought was interesting because it was horse meat jerky. I didn't try it, I just looked at it. And then you got Mr. Bennett here with Naruto doing the shadow clone jutsu. Uh, this would be perfect for quarantine because then everybody could have a teacher with them at their house and just poof away when we're done with the school day. But I believe that is it. Thank you for sticking around with me. I hope you enjoyed it. And come back tomorrow to learn a little bit more about Japan.